studios of WSMN, its owners and/or associates.
Lisa and Robin are two fun friends diving deep into conversations where nothing is taboo. They believe in eating dessert before dinner and wearing the bikini. They're allergic to labels, authority, and cheap shoes. Currently, they're launching themselves through life being the good time, bold enough to take risks and inquisitively asking, what's next? They hail from New Hampshire, but they could be anywhere dressed in cute clothes. If they had to share a tombstone, it would read, "Curiosity killed these cats." Your hosts, Lisa and Robin on the mic.
Welcome to another episode of Lisa and Robin on the mic. You are listening on WSMN 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can watch, stream, and listen on WSMN.live as well as YouTube. We are still officially not up on Facebook.
Yeah, so I opened my Facebook, so friend request me. It's my new one. My picture matches my Instagram.
I have an intellectual attorney lawyer who I think is going to come on. We're going to talk about that.
Oh, sweet. Let's do that.
Yeah. So welcome to another Thursday. We have something very exciting today because we have a guest that is on for his second time. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yes,
you get to come on twice.
Our first guest that has been is our second guest, second time.
Second time.
Blah, 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 blah.
And we have so much to talk about him. We were on 2 hours last time, and we needed another 2 hours, so he is here. His name is Nick Alerud. If you remembered last time, we talked about burnout. He is a former banker turned real estate investor. With over 20 years of experience, we have had a long-standing relationship in real estate, and I always joke, seriously, but not joking, that you were always my idol, that you were always ahead, doing more and being bigger and being better, and I'd be like, "Ooh, I'm exhausted over here." While he's, climbing, and he owned an 8-figure business that included a multi-state wholesale, fix and flip, and rental operation where he would and his team would do over 100 deals a year in 7 states. I'm exhausted just reading it.
Don't read it.
But I wanted to tell you because why we're here is Nick is sort of aligned with us on kind of switching. Real estate will always be in our wheelhouse because when you're really good at something, you can never quite let it go, right? I think. Mm-hmm. And I love real estate, actually. It's foundational to all of our lives. Our lives are built where we live, whether you're renting or you're owning. If you can make that space in your environment perfect for you, you will thrive out in the world. It's like a plant in its correct location in your yard. So that's how I feel about real estate. But then we also want to kind of just explore and do different things. What are some of the things that you're doing now?
Well, totally. So it's funny because real estate for me now, looking back on the 20 years, right? We talked about this in the burnout session. That was more of a means to an end for me. It was a tool. It was something that I went into the business because I was in search of financial freedom, which is what lots of people are in search of when they even have big careers or they're just going self-employed. They're going to take the leap. And what we talked, just to fast forward through the burnout conversation, not really realizing what I was doing when my ego kind of stepped in and sort of said, okay, I no longer was doing it for the reasons that I got into it for. I started to say, how can I be bigger? How can we have more employees, more deals, more units, more cash flows, more everything, and having it all, truly doing it for the wrong reasons and having it collapse, or even just realizing I had built this prison for myself, right? Like,
well, instead of you building a machine that's working for you, now you're working for the machine.
Oh, 1,000%. And that was what we talked about in our last session, right? I was on top of that mountain on the hiking Kilimanjaro and saying, oh my God, if everything were gone, would I be okay? And I had this weird relief that came off of me. And over the next 3 to 4 years, fast forward, everything did at a very hard reset, right? Relearning what success is, relearning what freedoms were, relearning who I was, and who are you when you lose your identity, when you lose your career, when you lose your relationships, when you lose, and that became my beginning of the search for freedom again. And now there's freedoms in all the capacities, financial and relationship and time and spiritual, and it's all a pursuit and a journey.
Even in your mind, the things that we hold on to Like I always use traffic, being sitting in traffic, and people using, just people showing up angry, or like even people getting so triggered over politics and issues. At the end of the day, like, yes, we can care about those things, but how much do we hold in our body? How much energy do we hold? So freedom from that, like that's why I think freedom in our mind, what we actively choose to pick up and put down.
Beautifully said. Everything we
love it.
touch has an energy to it, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And listening, that is, people think that all we consume is like our food and our beverages and like, oh, make sure we have the proper nutrients. No,
Right.
it's every single bit of stuff that hits your eyeballs, your ears, or your senses.
Yes.
It's processed and then held in your body in one way or another. And what do we do with it? Do we release it? Do we work with it? Does it help us create, or does it just foster an angry emotion that we end up being
Just
reactive
sits
to?
in there.
Or,
It
or
sits.
even worse, we don't know why we feel what we feel, and we don't know where it's coming from, and we're blaming the wrong things. I was actually talking to a gentleman who was on this podcast, and he owns a moving company, and he was talking about how divorces are hitting hard. And I was like, why? Because he's married. I said, why do you think that is? And he's like, I think it's just coming everywhere, this idea that it will be better. Something's better. There are so many options, and I'm stuck with this option. And I think people think they don't have to be stuck anymore. They can just, it's better over there. And I think anytime you do anything, relationship-wise or career-wise, that you start getting into the hard, middle mundane of life, you get like,
Right.
I like that one. That one for that. You get really like, I need out of this. And
Yeah.
then people look to their career. They look to their spouse. They look to their family of like, what can I get rid of because I am feeling all of this stuff, when it might not be those things at all. I talked to one of my friends, and she was saying, I know it's really cool to talk about how to give up on your career after 20 years. She goes, but this career has treated me really well, and I don't want to give it up. And I'm like, I'm so glad you feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you've dedicated 20 years to something and you don't feel like it's a mistake.
Right.
There's some of us like waking up going, what am I doing here?
But in
How did
truth,
I get here?
in truth, right? Like none of it's really a mistake. But if we go look at how we pick relationships, right? We get through high school, we have relationships in high school. Like we don't even know who we are yet. And then we go into our careers, and we're still like right now, the average time in a career is 3 to 5 years. Now, when we started, we were probably thinking we're going to get into this for the next 20 years, right?
Well, you're looking at pensions. Pensions were a big thing back then. Pensions and retirement and all of that stuff. It's like you signed up for lifelong journey with this company.
Yeah, definitely, if with loyalty. But then relationship, right? So what I've come to learn is that we don't know who we are. Maybe 30, 40, 50, 65 years old, right? So when we get into relationship, before that, relationship is the most difficult, beautiful mirror exercise we can do that can trigger every single little thing that we have not worked on in ourselves yet.
That's true.
Right? Because we're having this mirror around us and the constant trigger. And it's a beautiful dance that we do in life. But when we're 18, 23, or 20, we don't know who we are yet. We're going to be growing in an entirely different direction.
Yeah.
Sometimes they grow with us, sometimes they don't. But it's can we embrace that trigger and know that it's for the benefit of both of us? And that's why I think separation or coupling. We work with coupling and uncoupling in my work.
Yep.
And it's all beautiful, right? Because it's everyone meets for a reason. Everyone
Yes.
has beautiful lessons and reasons to live here in this place. And
See,
Yeah.
I think divorce should be called liberation.
it's one way to put it, right?
I mean, in some ways, but we've been taught our whole life that everything is finite. Like it's when you get married, it's final. When you get your job, your career, it's final. Everything is a chapter. Everything is evolve. Like we're constantly evolving. We didn't know what we didn't know what we didn't know.
Yes.
And then once you know better, you have to do better. And it's just that I think we're all on a self journey to know who we truly are. What we let go as freedoms, what we pick up, our relationships, they're chapters. If you start looking at them, your career or your job, they're chapters. This served me or it didn't serve me. I picked this up for something, a reason.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny that you say that, because I'm going to go the opposite direction and say people hate uncertainty, and the fact that, hey, let's have a life together. We're going to buy a house together. We're going to have children together. But you can leave anytime you want when your chapter's done.
True.
Right?
It's
I mean, we like security, yes.
So when I think of that, I think how do we handle the uncertainty where you think, oh, marriage is forever, and some person's like, yeah, I've changed my mind. Or think of family relationships. Are you find the a spouse that you love and they die? What do you know? So I think there's a part of us as the human species that really doesn't like uncertainty.
Well, yeah.
And I think we try to
safety.
make our lives as certain as possible. And that's where we're always struggling is we have no control over what life gives us. So you can make the best plan. Doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that?
But 9 times out of 10, I feel like if one spouse or one person wants out of the relationship,
Yes.
neither one of you are happy.
Yes.
You're not
Yeah.
getting your needs met. So even though you're trying to hold on to it, so it's not, we all look for security. And now one of my biggest things is safety and security. And-
Most
and I
women
think-
it is.
And I think
Most
for
women
most
it is.
women it is. But also what I'm learning is to not hold things so tightly. And if I try to show up as my best version of myself, of course I'm going to mourn this loss, but it's also maybe it's time for me to start looking at, is this serving me? Is this nurturing me? Is this growing me?
Yeah.
This is beautiful. So I have a couple thoughts too. So safety and security and certainty, right? That is something that our minds desire. We're built for that, right? We're built to try to seek out that security, that stability, and that's where we still are today. But from the moment we're born, every single 7 years, cellularly, we are completely different people. Our organs, our tissues, our skin, our brain is completely different every 7 years. It regenerates. And the only thing that stays the same is the computer programs that we put into our brain that we've learned to keep us safe in society, to keep us loved, to keep us part of the tribe, to keep us fed.
Yes.
Right? And with all of those programs that we've fed into the brain for so many years, that's the illusion. That's the certainty we still crave when really and truly, like in my search for freedom, right? The only certainty that there is that there is always change. There is never stability, and to be okay, it's beautiful that way. And the only certainty we have in our
accepting
world,
the fact that it is what it is and it's going to change.
it's always going to change. And the only certainty is in the path that you're on today. Today, this is how it looks, and it's beautiful.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
These are the relationships that I've had.
Yes.
They didn't work, and it was beautiful. This is my career right now. I feel this way about it. Maybe it's not great, and it's perfect as with where I am right now in this moment.
So
Yeah.
you're
Yes,
in
yes.
the throes of acceptance.
That's the search for the journey, right? The journey to freedom.
And I love that.
Yes.
What I wanted to talk about when you talk about the cellular change every 7 years, there is a lot of the 7 year makes so much sense. You can get allergies out of nowhere. You can get rid of allergies out of nowhere. And there's also the idea in marriage of the 7 year itch.
I was going to say that,
And someone else, Ben Shapiro actually talked about, because in his faith, they don't believe in marriage before sex. He was like, all right, I know I'm going to marry you. Like he dated very 2-3 months, like this is either working or I got to find someone this is going to work with, because he wants to get married. And he also says that if you marry, don't have children, that 7 year itch is a time to let you know you need to move on to something else. That if things aren't going well, and that's where the 7 year, he thinks from his faith and everything, that's where the 7 year itch comes from. But I actually think it's maybe a biological thing too, where every 7 years, as you're changing, hopefully you're changing.
I was married for 14 years.
Interesting.
And it was our 14th year when stuff started going
south.
Yeah, and if you look back on your relationships, there's always been some friction around that time period. I feel like you can look back and you're like,
Well, I'm old
somebody
enough
said
now
to
with
me,
all
well,
my
it's
friends.
7 years, so I'm like, oh. And you look at that, and I was like, well, it has been 14, so there it's
Yeah,
It's,
yeah. So that's pretty interesting.
But looking back, even my relationship with Chris, we're God, I don't know, it feels like forever, but I feel like we're 15, 16 years in now. But you look back, and especially that's why I say a lot on my camera roll. I can look back and I can remember a time where we struggled, and it's definitely around those changes in our body.
Yeah, and with rupture or challenge, right? There's a crossroads.
Yeah.
And I think when you say safety in relationship now, so when we do couples work, like if we break it down to the very raw piece of what safety means, it means that, okay, if we have a disagreement or a communication breakdown or something happens, I'm still feel safe that you're not just going to run and go somewhere else, or you're not going to find.
Right.
We're committed to working through this together, even if that working through eventually turns into this
Yes.
is not working.
Yes.
But that's the safety piece. Like, we're going to work
Yes.
through this and not just run away.
Yes.
Right? But it's funny, 7 years, only because we keep saying it now, it's in relationships, and it's in our body cellularly, and it's in our businesses. Spiritually, 7 years has always been this massive, all of your, if you go back from 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 21, 21, there's always been a astrologically
Like an energetic
an
piece.
energetic pull, and you go through an entire transformation in your bodies, in your spirit, in your energies, and that's what they say. So that's what's all like. You'll feel it if you guys into astrology at all. The Pattern app, it's a free
Yeah.
app.
Okay.
It gives you all of your. It's way deeper than horoscopes. It gives you everything, and it shows you what patterns you're in.
Yeah.
And if you're like, I'm going through something really tough right now, and you go like, oh shit, well, it says I'm supposed to be.
Right. Well, I always joke that I know when Mercury's in retrograde because my life just feels like I am going backwards. and I'll be so frustrated, and the technology doesn't work, and I'll be frustrated, and I'll go, oh, you know what? Mercury's in retrograde. Let me check it out. Okay. Or I'm coming right into that where you feel like Mercury is like the planet that actually looks like it's going backwards, but it's not, depending what happens in space. And I love astrophysics, but I don't know a thing about it. But I was thinking back to, I had like a existential crisis at 28 where I wasn't in the career I planned my whole life. I wasn't an air traffic controller. I had no idea what to do next. I was distinctly unhappy because the vision I had for my life was not. I had it for a period of time, right up until about 25, where, yeah, I wasn't an air traffic controller, but I was in aviation. And when that, I was like, if I'm not doing the thing I want to do, and I don't have stability in the job because I was a contractor, then I should do something and I should make money. Because I was giving up the idea of money for a job that I loved. Like, yes, I was making money, but that was not the predominant reason why I chose that. I figured money would come.
Yeah.
But, and also air traffic controllers made a really good amount of money. So in my head, I was like, if I could just get into air traffic control, I'll have enough money to be okay. But then I was like, okay, well then I need to stop working for other people. I need to only rely on myself. I'm a very self-reliant person. I'm an only child. I was on my own. You've been on your own, Robin, since you were young. I don't know. How old were you when you went on your own?
About 15.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we probably all have a self-reliance piece.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
know I have a productivity piece where if I don't feel like I'm being productive, I think there's something wrong. And if I'm required to lean on someone outside of myself, I also feel this unease. And
Yeah.
I know it's deep-seated. I know it starts from childhood, and I know it's from being an only child, and I wonder, and then I'm self-employed. So you rely on yourself, because there's that piece of it. What do you think in your journey to freedom? What have you been coming across in which you can help people with a switch in their productivity piece? Because yes, answering 200 emails doesn't actually make you productive or doesn't move the needle forward in what you want your life to look like.
Oh, wow. That's a great question. First of all, I did not know you were an air traffic controller.
No, I wasn't. I wanted to be.
Oh, you wanted to be. Okay. That makes complete sense for your character design. Self-reliability and like controlling all the little
Bossiness
pieces and
and
like making,
bossiness.
but detail-oriented and high stakes,
Yes.
right? Like it
Yes.
makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Yes.
That's crazy. Productivity. Well, so again, I have a whole different feel on this now is instead of doing what I used to do, which is what are the top 4 income generating activities that I can do this week and then putting them on my calendar? Because if they're not on my calendar, that's all stuff that the brain has created. Moving from the heart first. So now always going back to how do I feel like even doing this? What's the goal here? What's my intention? And then how does that make me feel in my body? Right? Like this sounds crazy to the people who are in business for so many years, who have been in their brain for so long, like all of us and myself included. But honestly,
You're like, this is not going to work.
if you feel it, and you have that intuition too, right? So like when you feel that in your body that it's heavy, then that's a clear indication from your heart to tell your mind. Usually it's the other way around. Our mind is talking about everything all the time. No, it's like, this is not where we're supposed to be going right now. Some people feel it physically in their necks or in their heads or in their shoulders or in their stomach, right? that is an indication from your higher self, of the spirit self, like, this is not what I'm meant to be doing right now. So let's move into, well, let's take the minute, let's take the breaths, let's walk in nature. Like, what do I feel good about? What excites me in this moment? Because if we get down to it, 76 years on this planet after 13.8 billion years of evolution is nothing. The fact that we're even here right now is a miracle, having this kind of conversation, looking at each other with our eyeballs.
Yeah.
Like, we came from dirt rocks and alien stuff.
Right. And stardust.
Yes. So actually, I had two things. So we're talking about 7, and whether you're religious or not, when you were talking about it, reminded me, in Matthew, Peter asked Jesus, like, how many times he should forgive his brother, and he said, suggesting 7 times, a common number for the Jewish people. But Jesus responds 70 times 7, which clarifies not 7 times, but 70 times 7, and you're constantly over and over.
Wow.
Limitless. It's limitless forgiveness, and it also talks about the number 7 in the Jewish tradition represents completeness and perfection. And so think about, it also takes about, it's striving for spiritual wholeness in our relationships, like even relationship to self, because I think our relationship to self is our number 1. And most people think that you're selfish when you start talking about, no, I'm focused on me.
Yes.
Chris and I were actually having a conversation about this last night, and we're talking about awareness and how people perceive. I think that I feel a room before I do, or I feel people way before people will process, either visually, when you walk into a room, how do you evaluate the room? I think I feel the room before. We were talking about a friend of ours, like I love her dearly, but I don't... There's something about her energy that is off with me. That
It's like static.
Always keeps. Well, it always keeps me a little bit protected.
Yeah.
Like, so I know that she's not here for me, more so that I feel like I'm there for her.
Yes. Yeah.
So I just feel like there is a little bit of resistance in our relationship, and there's no negativity. It's just, I can't quite put my finger on the why. It's just, I feel a dis-ease between the two of us, and I'm like, I don't know, but I harbor nothing, no ill will. It's just, I am aware of.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I feel that with people, and Chris is like, yeah, I think that your body feels things before your brain processes it.
Well, everyone's body feels things before we process it. We just ignore it. So there's a book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin Decker, I believe. Or Decker Gavin. I don't know. Anyways, you can look it up. It's The Gift of Fear. He talks about how he had a very traumatic childhood with a lot of violence. And so he ended up doing his work, psychological work with trauma victims. And so he would interview them, and survivors of attacks specifically, where like people rescued themselves or they made the decision. Because a lot of times things that happen, it's like, just be quiet, just stay still, I'll let you go, all of that. And then people do, like, they're like, I just want to get through this. But then something happens and something switches that says, they're going to kill me. And then they save themselves. And so he interviews them, and he says, how did you know? And the person always says, I don't know. And he says, you do. There was something that your body registered that your brain didn't comprehend, but you acted on your body, not your brain. How do you know? And we all have it. We just, societally, we've shut it down for a lot of reasons, because we have to go to work.
Yeah.
90%.
I also think trying to be politically correct.
Yeah. So we've done this thing where it's a socialization, but if you are in tune with that intuition, you don't have to know why that person gives you static. You don't have to. You just have to listen to it. You just have to trust it.
Yes.
And if you don't believe you have it, think of the time you're on the road and you're like, this person doesn't have a directional on, but I know they're looking for a house and they're going to take a right or a left at some point. And you just know they're doing something weird, but it is, there is some intellectual telepathy type thing if we hone it.
Yeah, and tune
because
in.
it exists. It exists in every. It exists in animals.
Well, I think society we have dulled our intuition. You know, you think about getting on the elevator, and you always get that creepy feeling, and like a lot of times we're like, no, it's fine. You know, it's fine, and we don't. We don't walk away from it, or we get invited somewhere, and we have a bad feeling, and it's like, well, you know, or you do something out of courtesy because it's the right thing to do socially,
Yeah.
but it doesn't make your body feel good. So I think that we have dulled our intuition over and over and over again. I've talked about it before. This lady wrote an article about her kid taking him to the playground, and he always would bring his ball with him, and this other kid would always want to play with him and want to take his ball, and the kid always said no. So they're sitting in the sandbox one day, and she has encouraged it, kind of pushed him to go play with the kid. The kids, when they do it, the kid pushes him down, takes the ball, and runs away. The kid at 3 already knew that this was not safe for him. And so she said it's just an awareness of like, I was numbing my own child's intuition.
Or
Telling him
overriding
not
it.
to and even said, you know, one of the things that as a kid, I hated growing up and kissing relatives that I didn't know or hugging people that I don't know. I don't want people that I don't know touching me. Like
Wow, good point.
I have a personal barrier. I'm a very touchy-feely person. If I like you and you're in my circle, I'll always hug you, put my hands on you, but I don't want to kiss a stranger. And so when I had kids, I never made them. I would say, you know, we're all over family reunions and camping and stuff, and I would always say, you know, go tell everybody good night. Don't say go hug go hug this or go hug them. Don't go kiss, you know, don't go kiss nanny or any. That's not there. I will let you do you, but I would just say go tell them good night, and that's it. Like I'm not gonna force my kid to kiss somebody because I knew what that felt like. That's my personal space. And I think that's part of dulling down these little things that we dull down our intuition, so we don't listen to that. We don't listen to our heart, our body.
Yeah.
More
That's
than-
powerful. That's powerful with the kid. I was forced to, right? I'm just thinking, I have my kids do that. When my parents come, make sure you hug it. So thank you for that notice. But look at what we also prize as this society, because intuition is very much alive and well, even in like the Chinese tradition and in the Indian tradition and like on the Western, but we're in the Western culture, the almighty dollar, right? In search of net worth, in search of cash flow, in search of balances, and protecting the family means having a big bank account, right? Like production over
Right.
everything else. And when we tap, that's when we're so tapped in, because production and building and business is mind. Intuition is heart in its body. And we've just prized this for so long. And to hear, it's funny to hear someone who's so well in tuned with the heart, with the body. Some people now might ostracize, hey, she's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, well, I don't know what she, you know.
That's
she,
okay. I'm gonna do my crazy right over here.
Exactly. But this is the awakening that I see happening, is that people are finally waking up to this in our search for freedom, our search for, oh, wow, maybe what I did do for 20, 25 years was not giving me what I wanted, because now I realize what I wanted was this feeling of
Right.
freedom, this feeling of love and compassion and connectedness and relationship, and money is not going to do
I have
it.
a question for you. How many people, if you had to put a number to it, think they know what they want?
Oh, 0. Myself included, right? It took
Yes.
me however many years.
And
Yeah.
it changes. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit that what we want changes.
Yes.
Yes.
But- Do
And
you
because
think
I
that-
didn't even know that how many times did you get something you didn't even know was an option and you didn't even know you'd like it,
Right.
right?
But how many? But can you have freedom if you don't know what you want and who you are?
Yes, because I think personally, and you can answer too, I think freedom is being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it.
But you got
And to be able to choose, I want to do something and I don't want to do something. When you don't have freedom is when you have to do something you know you don't want to, you just really just don't want to do.
Yes.
And none of us want to do our taxes or go grocery shopping and sit in traffic. None of us want that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about
And
like the
change the
bigger
sheets.
things. What do you think?
Well, it's so funny because my answer has changed even from 2 years ago, right? So normally it helped provide clarity and with a target, with a vision, right, with a lighthouse to point at, and you always have something to go towards every single day. So it gives you that sense of certainty and clarity. But even over the last 2 years, that's also the mind, looking for something to point at.
Mm.
When I could say, and I still like, we can do that. We get to choose to do that. We get to choose to build something. But if you're in this place of maybe waking up and not really knowing what you want any day, can you sit with that? And you can, of course, meditate and have your tea and do a vision board and feel what it would feel to live in this ideal life and design what you want in your life. That's the next step. But true freedom is to sit with it and be like, I don't really know what I want right now. And that's perfect for where I am in this one moment.
Yes.
I'm just going to just be here, and I'm okay not knowing.
What?
I'm okay with
That
it.
seems like such a kind thing, a kind extension. Do you think
Yeah.
we're kind to ourselves?
Do you think that we're kind to ourselves?
No.
I don't. I run
Big
away.
fat no.
I know. Big fat no.
Because
And that's what I'm thinking about. Like, but I was trying to think of the word the other day, and I said to Chris, I want to change that word because that sounds like a punishment to me. It's just like rules. I think rules are hard, fast lines where I think if we're all meant to be like water and being flowing and changing and evolving, then you need boundaries and bumpers. You don't need rules. Guidance.
There's a new word for it. Yeah. I love that.
Boundaries. I love it.
For the last time, I was pick on both of you here for a minute, right? So the last time, when was the last time you found yourself feeling guilty or shameful or maybe even angry at yourself for something or whatever?
yesterday.
Yesterday? I like that Robin has to think about it. That's good.
Well, I mean, like other than the golf course,
Every time I hit a shot.
dude, I was playing some really great golf, and then the next day it was like, oh my god, I don't even know how to swing a club. It's so different. But I don't know. I've been trying to be more at peace in being. I pause, so I don't. Feel. I can't think of one quickly.
Beautiful. That's okay. So now we're going to pick on Lisa.
Yeah. So, but I did. So what happened was, I had a very, very bad night's sleep. I was up every hour for about 15 minutes, so I was just wiped, exhausted.
Yeah.
So when I ended up waking up, it was like, oh, I really need to go back to sleep for a couple hours. So I slept. And then I woke up and I'm like, the day's gone. Everything I wanted to do, and then I was like, calm down, calm down, calm down. It's okay. You had a terrible night's sleep. It was way more important to get the extra three hours that were physically uninterrupted than just having 12 cat naps
Yeah.
over the period of
Yeah.
that time. And then
Yeah.
I kind of said, okay, if nothing, because I didn't have the energy. Because now I'm off. Like everything's off. My circadian rhythm's off. Like everything's off. So I said, all right, just have a cup of tea, play with the cat. It's okay. You'll get it done. You'll get stuff done. I didn't get everything I wanted to. That's kind of what brought me to the productivity conversation. And then I had to tell myself, well, you did the 3 most important things. Everything else can wait.
Oh, beautiful. So you did relate it. I'm going to take it to kind of a darker side because there were so many times for me when I was going through all of my spirals of like, especially when I was going through the identity shift, when the career was kind of changing and ending. And I woke up and didn't know what I was supposed to do. Talk about lack of certainty, right? Complete lack of identity, lack of certainty, lack of vision forward. And my brain would just do something, right? Because I was so conditioned to waking up and filling every single minute of my calendar. And it wasn't until a coach, for me, like an energetic coach, was like, this is your work. What does it feel like to have your brain constantly yelling at you, saying, do this, and then you're going to say to the brain, I love you, I feel you, and I'm going to be here anyway and do nothing for 45 minutes. And it felt so uncomfortable. But that's the training that had to happen, right? But the anger, my point was, I would say horrible, horrible things with really bad language to myself.
Yes.
For just the lack of achieving something that I wanted to achieve, or for not doing this thing, or for taking a break when I needed it.
Yeah.
The brain wouldn't let me do that. So these angry, angry thoughts that are swirling around, and it's a voice. If you think about this voice that's talking to you, and when I tell my people now, it's like, imagine
I call it the
you're
narrator.
Imagine you're saying this. Imagine that same voice, though. It's you telling a friend or a family member or your child all of these negative, horrible things that you're saying. And if you look at what you're actually saying to yourself, what is that energetically actually doing
Yes.
to your body, to your spirit, to you every that's just pushing you down. It's collapsing you. It's making you limited and fearful and scarce. So now I look at it the exercise now, just like you, Robin, right? You take that breath. You really are aware of what is coming through, and it's the whole journey to all the freedoms starts with self-love.
Yeah,
with
well,
relationships.
so I do have. So the other day, Chris was saying something, and I just kind of cut him off and overtalked him. And I was like, well, I self-corrected very quickly because I was like, you know what? So it was about our son. And I was like, well, there is a different way to say it. So he kind of snapped, and I was like, man. And I saw my son's reaction because I see he was looking at Chris for approval and being, hey, I did a good job. I would handle that very differently. So I actually walked upstairs. He said something, and
Chris, or he, your son?
Chris, and I kind of snapped. I said, well, there is a better way to do it. He kind of was very curt, and then he walked away, and I was like, why did you have to do it like that? And he's like, what do you mean? And then, so I said something, and then immediately he's like, I'm not going to have a, conversation about it. And I'm like, this could start an argument right here. But then I just paused, and I walked up, and I actually he was upstairs in the closet by then, and I walked, and I said, hey, I just wanted to apologize. I said, because you know what? Dads and moms do things very differently. And I think that you were giving dad energy and I was trying to give you mom advice energy.
Oh, that's
I
good.
apologize. Because we all have different ways of doing it. And handling men and young men, we both have benefit and we both provide value. And I was not allowing him to provide a male influence in the way that men do things for their boys. And so I went upstairs and immediately apologized. So that's one of the things I, regret. But I'm proud of myself for learning, and it makes me hungry and curious to be like, okay, where else can I be better? Like,
Wow.
what else can I do? And self-correcting.
Yeah.
So self-correcting very quickly and being like, I don't want to be punished, and I don't want him to punish. The thing that I've been working with on him on the weekends. And I have started it asking, but I've been asking it over and over again. What does your perfect day look like? And he'll say, I don't know. What does your perfect day look like? And I said, no. What does your perfect day look like? And he has to give me an answer. And I just let it go for a little while, and he'll say something. He's like, I don't know. Maybe some golf today would be fun. And I'm like, no. How do you see your day? I'm trying to get him to pause and actually think about the energy what energy does he want to manifest in
feel
that
the
day?
energy, right?
Yes. So today, and we've been on a good run. So today I reach into my to get my sunglasses on the way here, and he said, I love you. You are the sexiest woman to me. Knock 'em dead today.
A little note inside her sunglasses.
In my little sunglass book. And I was like,
Yay.
it's sweet because now I see him more and more getting into that energy and creating, like, he's aware of his contribution to the energy to our relationship.
Yes.
And that's what I'm like, that just makes you like fired up. That's what keeps you on the honeymoon.
And I also think that when parents are dealing with children, right, there is the different vibe. There's the mother vibe and the father vibe. And it's always a different parenting relationship when they huddle together, game plan, and come from a united front.
Yeah.
Because I know when my parents would often not have a united front.
Yes.
So I would just, like, okay, I'm going to write I'm going to write.
Yes.
If I had to do something, I would write it down because both of my parents were Mensa smart. So they would digress me and I'd be like, man, I didn't agree to that. So I would write down and be like, don't speak until I read, and then I would read, but I would know who to go to specifically for certain things because they mostly didn't provide a united front.
Yeah.
I even remember my sister and I would just say, well, we'll just go ask Dad. Always.
Yeah.
You always knew a way around.
Yeah.
But
But I
what's
like
funny
that
is-
if you come together from mom and dad energy united,
Yes.
there's no go around. Now we're dealing with the actual issue and
Well,
we can deal
But you
from
think
it.
about baby birds in the nest, and it's the male's bird job to kick the baby out of the nest. It's the mom's job to nurture. So, but as long as you're still on the same wavelength, I can nurture you and not overstep him. He can,
Kick you out of the
push
nest.
you. Yes. He can push you out of the nest, but you're still going to get love. You're still going to be nurtured, and you're still going to have both. So finding that blend and that balance to still move the needle forward in raising a human being, launching a human being.
That's beautiful. It's funny on the younger couples, right? So that I think that speaks beautifully to how you were both raised, and also your growth together, individually and together, right? To really be that united front. A lot of the parents now are not capable of. I'm going to give them everything that my parents didn't.
Yes.
So both sides, right? Like especially with now, the last I checked, it was 73% of couples do end up separating and divorce. So
wow, that's up from like 50.
We were 69% when I went through it, and now it's higher than that. So the normalcy is divided family. So it's almost like, and no matter what, there's lots of guilt and shame typically from that generation saying, I wanted to give my kids this unit, but I couldn't, so I'm going to overstep and overgive and be lenient and no structure. And what it's causing, the kids still, they want and desire, they want love and they want structure.
They do.
Right? And at the end of the day, when they are like going into teenager world, if there's nothing, they will find, they talk about trauma, right? There's actually a great reel on Instagram. I think you both have seen it. It's like, us processing trauma from our childhoods, which were very different.
Yes.
Then like there's one that's like, and then I wanted to play football and they signed me up for football class. Oh God, why did they give me everything I wanted? And it's interesting because that's truly what's happening.
Yes.
And they actually now are having to create their own rift because that's what cycles of life does.
Yes.
Yep.
To create a story around mom and dad and something evil that they did or didn't do, even if it's not real, to separate themselves from the household.
Yes.
Right.
And that is their trauma.
And a lot of times, sometimes they don't realize that that's what they're doing, but their age and their natural body is wanting to separate.
Yes.
Right. It's rebellion. You need to have that as a teenager. You need to separate from your birth family and go. And I joke with all my friends, in being the parents you didn't have, you now have children that don't want to leave. We were all out of the house early. Why? Get out. Let me get away from these people. And now you have children like, why do I have to go? Don't you love me? And you're like, you made it too good. This is all your fault. I joke with all my friends about that. Of course, I wouldn't leave. Can I move in? I always joke that.
It's true.
And I do think that there is the parts of us that are narrating the story. And you have to double check the narrator. Is this true? I know it's a really damn good story.
I think
right?
my biggest,
We've got the drama. We've got the height of this. We've got this. Is this true? Is this really true?
Yeah.
And I think you have to listen to the answer, and you have to ask the question over and over again, because the lazy part of you or the conditioned part of you or the habitual part of you will be like, it's always this, or it's never this. And it's like, well, is that true? No, it's not true. It's not always. It's not never. We don't live in absolutes. Our life doesn't organize that way. So, okay, what's happening right now?
Yeah.
Like, what do we need to do? And then sometimes you don't need to do anything. Sometimes it just doesn't need air. It just doesn't need air. You're bored. You're picking this for a reason because you don't want to do something else. It could be a million things. It could also not be anything.
It's true. It's so true. This is beautiful. In my hypnosis stuff, right? When people are looking to overcome something,
like quit smoking.
Anything, right? And it's so interesting because we are meaning-making machines. We go around and we make meaning from everything. And you mentioned stories, right? So we always have, why did I get triggered? Or why do I feel anxious? Or why do I feel fearful? Why do I do this when it doesn't serve me? Oh, because I have this story, this program, this subconscious belief that I created as a child or as a teenager that served me to a point. But you said, is it true? Well, the answer is always nothing is true. It's you can always disprove it. You can always, and that's the beauty of freedom in that, is that, well, this story served me up until now, and maybe it is true, but now I get to choose my new story. I get to choose my new program. And, it was beautiful. Thank you. I appreciate you. And now how do I choose to live my life going forward? What's my new story that gives me that emotion, gives me that feeling that I want?
I think the choice is huge. When I think back to, I I had therapy in college. My therapist's name was Ken. I loved Ken. But I didn't want to see Ken. I was required by the school to see him because something dramatic happened in my house. And so when they figured out, like one of my teachers was like, you were my best student last semester. This semester, I can't even get you here. What's going on? I want to know what's going on. And when I told her, she's like, okay, I'm not capable of dealing with this, but we're going to bring you over to this guy. and he was great, but I didn't even want to tell him my story because I was like, I don't need the therapist.
Yeah.
You need to talk to my family.
Right.
Actually, I'm fine.
You need to fix them.
And he's like, we're never going to fix them. We're going to have you cope with them. And so every single week was choice because I would say I have to. Have to. And he would say, you choose to. And I'm like, I'm not choosing to do this. If I don't do this, who else? Like the simplest thing of cleaning. So then I get a roommate and I'm like, I'm the one who's always doing the dishes. I'm doing this. I have to. And he's like, well, you don't have to. And I'm like, well, then we're going to live in a dirty house and there's going to be bugs. And he's like, you're choosing to clean so you don't have bugs. And I was like, okay. Now I don't hate it so much. But I did have to tell her, like, if you don't start cleaning up your dishes, you're not allowed to cook here.
There you go.
And
There's a shift.
That worked for like 6 months and then something happens again. And that's just living with other people. And water takes the easiest path. And if I'm going to do the dishes quicker than you're going to do the dishes, I got to let the dishes sit sometime. But the whole point of that was, I think we worked for 2 years on choosing.
Yeah.
Knowing that this is all my choice, even if I don't like either option. I still get to choose the option I like.
Yeah, we're choosing.
I don't have to choose the least liked option. I can choose the other one. So if we change just the language in our head and out of our voice instead of I have to, I choose to, it makes a huge energetic shift.
It does. And expecting we have these, what we call them Manifest Monday Magic and Mindset calls every Monday morning. The last one we had was all about, can you walk around and expect, there's so many miracles that have happened in our lives, the small tiny little ones. Those are all the miracles that happen in 7 years is part of that, right? Everything that happens that brought us here to this moment. So can we, knowing that miracles are around us every single moment of the day that we can't understand, can we walk around and expect miracles and yet drop any attachment to an outcome or the result of the miracle? Can we just expect them in our lives every single moment? So when we're choosing our story, when we're choosing our path, when we're choosing our new program, I can walk down the street today. If people are like, we had a homeless woman come onto one of our calls, and she was, setting the stage with these positive intentions and positive vibes, and she felt that her life had brought her to this moment for another reason. And she expected that even as she left that Zoom, she would go out, right? And something, she didn't know what, wasn't attached to it. Something's going to happen for me today. It's going to change everything. And when you know it, 6 days later, right, she comes across like this amazing man relationship that everything that she's ever wanted, everything he's ever wanted, and they, it all worked out. And that will work for a while, maybe forever, maybe not. But it's like, this is the journey,
But I feel like I think the miracles happen is when you believe. When you believe that something is going to happen, and if you choose to believe in the good, it's the energy that you're putting out. Because I do believe that when you put bad energy out, you get in a cycle of attracting bad energy to you, or in the belief that you don't deserve it, or you don't do, you're not worthy of it, or you're not good enough, or it's unattainable, or all of these things. That goes back to your own belief of self-worth. I was trying to find in my notebook, and part of it, I found in my notes. One of the things I started, like, my self-talk, I would say, I'm a pretty type A personality. I like things to be a certain way, and learning to let go of those things has been a challenge. We pick a word every year, and what I was saying to Chris is like, I realize that word never leaves me. So even though I pick a new word, so surrender, I picked surrender 2 years ago, and I'm still in that process. So it's a tool that I've added to my belt. It's not a thing that you've gone through for a year ago, but
love that.
Asking, learning about who I am, it's having that pause and saying, well, why am I angry? What makes me angry? Well, he did this. Well, why did what he did make you angry? So getting back down and asking, keep asking the why question to go further and further down. And it all comes back to you. It all comes back to like, well, it was something that you were holding on to. So I just said, if I'm angry, my notes, if I'm angry, frustrated, disappointed, what role did I play in the situation? What is my part? Did I set a boundary? Did I have an expectation? Did I communicate clearly? Did I let my intentions be known? Sometimes when we ask ourselves those questions, it helps us communicate with ourselves better, but other people better too. It also realizes, like what I just did with Chris, I just realized, hey, wait a minute. I'm pushing mom energy on you, and like I was not allowing dad energy to happen. Like, because I was able to stop and self-reflect. And I'm like, that's learning who we are. So that narrative in my head is one of the biggest things that made me aware of it was having a daughter. And when she started going through puberty and her body's changing, and I watch her go from this lively sprite that's, taking all these beautiful little selfies on Snapchat and all this stuff, to this young woman who's now covering her midsection with her arms, because she's starting to see visually, she's starting to compare herself visually with her peers. And I realized how much do I joke about my flaws in my body. We'll be back.
Thank you for listening to Lisa and Robin on the mic. You're on WSMN 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can watch, stream, and listen on WSMN.live as well as YouTube. We are going to go to the top of the hour, but we will be back for another hour with Nick Alarud, myself, and Robin. We'll see you in a minute.